Hi, and welcome to another video in the RHCSA video series. Today's video is on the practice exam. This is part 1, and we're going to cover the practice exam questions 1 to 6 in this video. So let's first go to the Slack page I mentioned in the first video, and in this has got the exam sections. So we're going to cover 1 all the way to 6. So this is the last one we're going to cover in this video. Obviously we'll keep going with all the other until 20 with the other videos. So the first one is to interrupt the boot process and reset the root password. Change it to wander to gain access to the system. Okay, so the first thing we would like to do is actually reboot the system with a console window. So let's pick, it doesn't really matter which server for this one, but let's pick server 1 in this case. We can do a show to bring up the console, and then we just start a restart of the system, and then we need to catch the grub screen before it boots. So just click, oops, they've done it specifically very fast, which is great. So just to move something, okay, so just press the up and down arrow just to capture it. So you've got two options in there. So the first thing is to go on here on the first line here. So that's the actual kernel we're booting into. Press E to edit, and you're going to find the line that says Linux in there. And if you keep scrolling across, you got the crash kernel, all that stuff. Should be able to do Control E for end. Okay, so what I'll do is remove the quiet stuff here, so it's going to show all the output as we go along, and we just do a rd.break and then enforcing equals 0. So both those are important. So the rd.break means it will boot into single user mode, and then the enforcing means that it's not going to have SE Linux enforcing for this particular part. So we don't have to do the relabeling of the entire file system. We can now do Control X to start, and we shall see. So we've got all the you can see all the messages as it goes along. And we've now got a prompt that says switch root. So now we need to mount the file system. Mount -O, remount, read write, and then sysroot. Okay, and then we want to change root to sysroot. So now we've got sh command line, which is a bit more familiar. And then we can just do if we could do, who am I? I can see I'm root user. So we can now change the password quite safely. So it's passwd, so passwd. It's going to ask to change the password. We'll just put a new password in, was wander. So you can ignore that message to say the password's rubbish. It is, but it's okay. For the sake of this, it's fine. So now we can do a mount -O, remount RO, and then slash, and then we can just do an exit and then a reboot, and that should have the password changed. So soon be able to check that once it boots up. So you should see it boots up normally now because we haven't actually interrupted the boot and made any changes to grub. So we've got this additional loading option. Okay, so we just tried the password, so root and wander, and the password, and it logs in absolutely fine. So that works great. So if we exit that, we can then move on to the second one. As we don't need the actual display, we can just continue running it in the background and have that running in the background for us, which is a lot cleaner. Okay,
So next thing they said is, so we probably should do that on the other system. So I won't repeat it because you can just go back in the video and do it again. But you may want to practice that so you can do it multiple times on the systems. Obviously, you can just overwrite with the same password again if you wanted to keep practicing. So next one is mentioning about the repos. So we go back here. So we've done one. So we've changed the root password. We now want to repos are available from the repo server. So these are the two URLs we want to add for you to use during the exam. So we need to add those repos. And to do that, it's actually pretty simple. Let me just get back into the system. I think we've rebooted it. So that'll be why that's bombed out. So login as, should be able to log in root and wander now. So we're straight in as root, so it makes it a lot easier to do all these things. So DNF config manager. Just make sure that's installed. Cool, so that's good. That's a message that it looks happy. So we go to Slack. We might as well just copy and paste it from here. So I don't like to type anything when I can avoid it. Whoops. I forgot the add repo command, so you need to go --add -repo. So DNF config manager --add -repo, and then the repo name. So there we go, that's added the repo, and you can do the same on the other system. Again, I won't do that for both systems for the sake of this. Actually, I will. That could cause issues later on, so let me just do that. If it'll be pretty quick anyway. So let me just do a sudo on this one. Okay, so I'm in root with that one. So let's just copy the command. Okay. And what's the one I've done? The upstream one. Let's do the base OS. Base OS. Cool. Yeah, so we can do a DNF update just to make sure it can actually read the data from the repo. And so you can see in my case it's working absolutely fine. It may be worth doing it on both systems just to make everything sure everything works. So you can see create by DNF config manager, and that's the app base, etc. So that's cool. So that's step 2 completed. Now we go to number 3. So number 3 is now asking for the system time to be set to your or nearest to you time zone and ensure that NTP sync is configured. So yeah, another one of those ones I've covered. So let's do a clear, and let's do first we can do, let's just do the set time zone. That's the first thing I asked for. So the easiest way to do it is time date CTL, and then set -time zone, and then Australia. For me it's Australia, Melbourne. Obviously that will be different depending on where you're from. And again, let's do that on both systems because they haven't specified a particular system. Okay. And then we also want to do set NTP yes. So time date CTL set NTP equals yes. And let's just do that as well on number 2 as well. Cool. Right, and then to support NTD, we need to install cronny. So DNF install cronny. Okay, cronny is already installed. I shouldn't have put a D on the end. That's the actual daemon name. So cronny is already installed. You can see package is already installed. So we can just check. It's installed here as well. Cool. So that's one less thing to install. So we do a clear on that. Let's do a make sure it's started. So system CTL status we need, and we can see it's active and running. It looks like it's loaded, so I think we should be okay. We don't need to do anything with that one. We do just check the same thing on the other server. Okay, so next thing, the last thing to double check is actually has it got some Ntp Server Set. So it's just vi etc chrony.conf, and we've got something set there, pull. So that will be doing NTP already. So yeah, nothing really too much to do there. So we just set the NTP. We just within time date CTL, we checked the status with Chrony and make sure it's installed, and then also make sure it's configured as well. And we can see system clock is synchronized. It's in NTP. So yeah, it looks like it's all set to local time zone and stuff. So everything looks very happy. So we can move on from this one too. Okay, so this is step 4. So they want you to add the following secondary is the important part, IP addresses statically to your current running interface. Do this in a way that doesn't compromise your existing settings. So first one is IPv4, and that's 10.0.5. So we'll just copy that for later. So we want to do that in a way it doesn't overwrite what we've got currently, and we also need to do it to the active interface. So very easiest way to check what's active interface is just doing inf config. And if you have a look at the stats, you can see there's only 3 interfaces on this one. This one's got 9.3 kilobytes gone through it. This one's got 7.9 megabytes, and this is a loopback anyway. So your active interface is ETH1. So that's the one we want to target. So the first thing to do, so let's do a connection show so we can get the information about the connection. So nm CLI, which is a network manager CLI, let's do a connection show. We then got the name system ETH0 and system ETH1, and we can see that the actual physical device is here. So ETH1 is the physical device. So nm CLI connection, then modify, and then the name, so system ETH1. So we've actually got space there, looks like, because of that. It's thankfully with the tab it's sorting out all that for us, but that just means a literal space. So that's all good. You could put it in quotes as well, that'll do the same thing. So modify ETH1, and we want to do a plus because we're going to add a new IP address. We're not going to override the existing one. IPv4.address, and then the address, or the IP address itself. Did I copy that? Nope. So let's go and get that, and quickly paste that there. Okay, so that's taking that. So if we do if config, you won't have it yet because we haven't done the nm reload. So nm CLI reload, connection reload. It's there. Yeah, it's added. So it looks like it's good. Probably just need a reload of the system to pick it up. That's fine. So let's try and do the next command. So we can just do an up to get the same command, because we pretty much need to do the same thing with this. Just add in IPv6 address and just changing the address here. And so we get failed to modify connection. This property is not allowed for, method equals ignore. So we need to change this to IPv6 dot method, and it's manual 6 dot address, and we give. So now that's taken it. So we've just said now we're going to set the IPv6 method as manual, so it's kind of giving you answer anyway in the error. This property is not allowed for method equals ignore, so basically this ignore is saying ignore IPv6. So I've then told it we want to manually configure these things, and then we just do an nmcli connection reload to then have that reloaded. We can do an nmcli connection show and then just do the connection name, and we can see all the detail on the connection. If we just page through this, we can see the second interface here because it's commaed there, and we should be able to see there's our IPv6 address as well there. So that's all configured. So we've got IP addresses 1, we've also got IP address 1 and 2 for these IPv4 addresses. Awesome, so that's complete. So now let's move on to step 5. Step 5, enable packet forwarding on system 1. This should persist after reboot. Okay, so packet forwarding enablement is pretty straightforward. It's just via sysctl.conf. So I'll show you how to do that very quick. So we just do a vi etc sysctl.conf, and this is a setting that actually sets for on boot. So we just make a new change with an O, and we just do net.ipv4.ip_forward equals 1. And that's it. That will literally if you reboot that, then you'll have that value set. We can check the current status of it. So we do a cat proc sys net and an IPv4, and then it's IP forwarding, I think it is IP_forward. So the current setting is 0. So if I reboot the system now, wait for it to come back up, we can watch that through VirtualBox actually with the preview. Yeah, just see it here. Let's wait for it to complete to reboot, and then we'll double check that field is set correctly, and then we should be good for the next one. Yeah, let's come back up. Cool. So if we do clear, just clear all this gumph, and we just do the scene cat, we can see it's set to 1. So yeah, IPv4 forwarding is enabled. Okay, so let's go on to 6. Obviously there's also IPv6, so okay, so that's enabled. Okay, so next thing would be to go and let's look at number 6. So this is the last one we'll do. So system 1 should boot into the multi-user target by default, and boot messages should be present. So there's a couple of things in there. So multi-user target by default, we can set that, and boot messages should be present, so not silenced. Okay, no worries at all. So that is system ctl set -default, and then multi-user target. That sets that default. That's simple as. So that's the multi-user target by default. Done. Then we want to now change the way the system boots, so we have all the boot messages as we go along. So to do that, we just do vi etc default and then grub, and we have a look at these options, and you can see a grub command line Linux. So these are all the grub options, and we can see like crash kernels, we can see the resume swaps and stuff like that. So keep going, and right at the end is the RHGB and the quiet. So if we remove those options and right quit, make sure not to delete anything additional, and then we just do a grub to make config -o to output the file, and then boot grub2 and grub.config, so CFG in this case. That's going to make the grub config file. And finally we do another reboot, and what we'll do is actually show the preview, please. Yep. So it won't do anything here, and yet there we go, all the system messages are coming up, and we will be in remote user mode because I'll be able to log in as a different user essentially. So yep, so we've got all the messages, some nice messages going on there. We can now see systemctl get default is multi-user.target, multi-user.target. As always, I've posted the details of my Ko-fi page, so it's ko-fi.com/csg_yt. That's csg_yt for YouTube. And I've got my TeePublic page for any merchandise if you're interested in anything like that. And then finally, my Discord channel is also available there, and the link is in the description below for all of these, if you'll find them useful. So please check them out. Discord is the best place to ask questions, really. I do try and address stuff in the comments, but it's more difficult than somewhere like Discord, where you can ask more detailed questions, and you can also provide screenshots and stuff like that as required. So I hope again this video has been really helpful, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks again.